We have President Ojekin on the line, and he wants to give a couple remarks and answer any questions. First of all, thank you for joining us this morning. Monica, is that you? President Ojekin, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. First of all, good morning, everybody, and thank you. And so there's a horrible echo in this.
So for those of you that are on the line, if you could please mute yourself. If you're not speaking, that would be helpful.
How do you mute yourself?
All right, I'll give it a whirl. But even with people muted, there's still I hear myself speaking 12 times. Anyways, first of all, on the call this morning, I just want to first of all say that my priority right now is making sure that all of you remain healthy and safe. This is an unprecedented health crisis that we're all experiencing right now. And, you know, the magnitude sometimes of what's occurring, I think we forget about. All you need to do is turn on the news every once in a while to see what's happening, not only in Connecticut, but in the rest of the country. So we all need to just be very vigilant about social distancing and taking all the precautions necessary to make sure that we all remain healthy and safe, and our families remain healthy and safe as well. I also just want to let you know that we've been working nonstop as a team with the campuses since this pandemic first came into existence. Whether we were in the office before we went home, and for the last 2 weeks, 2+ weeks since we've all been working remotely. I just want you to know that we've been working tirelessly to make sure that students can continue their education towards completion this semester, that we remain a critical part of the governor's overall emergency response team as it relates to public health and safety in Connecticut, and that we are working with everybody as issues arise. And let me tell you, they arise not only daily but hourly. And so know that we are continuing to be very forceful on our work ethic, even though we're at home. Some people have reported that they're working harder at home than they did in the office. And so sort of with that as a backdrop, I just want to know that I receive a lot of emails from students. I take those seriously. I pass those on to my team to, make sure that those interests are being heard and those concerns are being dealt with. I know this is not an easy time for all of you, and I apologize for that. We're in a situation we did not create, but we have to be very responsive to every variation of the situation we find ourselves in. So I'm happy to take any comments and questions. We have folks on the line who have been working on specific issues related to the system's response, to the COVID-19 crisis. And so I will, Angela, whatever you want to do, but I will remain on the call as long as we have it to hear what the concerns are and to answer any questions folks might have.
Great, thank you. I know Monica just joined, so she's going to take over the reins, but I think the students wanted an opportunity to ask any questions or get clarification, or Monica, you can share some additional details on that. You might be muted. Monica?
You can't hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Oh,
Again, everybody on the line, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. We're getting an echo.
yeah, so I wanted to open up the floor to, there were some students who were supposed to bring some concerns from their campuses. Is Brooke on the line?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so our student government has been working on finalizing and formalizing our list as we are planning on kind of distributing the list to administrators on our campus because we know some of these concerns are going to be unique to Southern. But I'm sure there are a lot that also apply to other campuses. One of the key concerns we had was compensation for student workers. I'm sure pretty much all of us kind of rely on jobs on campus that a lot of students no longer have because of the situation. So Southern has some policies they put in place to ensure the students are compensated, but we just want to make sure that everything goes smoothly and that students are able to get the money that either they're working for when at home. Also, a concern was our financial aid timelines. So I'm not sure about other schools, but for Southern, our financial aid packages were supposed to come out earlier this year, and now it seems like the timeline might be kind of off. We're not exactly sure of the details yet, though. Another concern was in looking at students that have labs and practicums, making sure that they have first of all, the experience they need and the resources in order to be able to graduate if they're seniors. Also making sure that there are effective teaching strategies for these labs, and also trying to deal with field placement cancellation. So if students are working at local schools that I obviously can't do that anymore, that's obviously going to be a concern. Another issue that we're looking at is students that don't have access to internet or computers. I believe there are programs set in place for students to get computers I don't know what the term is, but basically can get internet without it being wireless. I'm not really sure how that works, but I know that's being addressed. Also, we have heard some concerns from students in terms of professors being flexible and accommodating to their struggles and needs. We know that there was a concern that professors were making students, when they're doing WebEx meetings, to make sure they have their cameras turned on, and we weren't really sure if that needed to be addressed or not. We're still working on that with our student government advisors, but it's also something that we wanted to keep our eyes and ears out for if that's kind of a violation of privacy of any type. That's kind of it for what we have right now. We also, I don't know what other schools are doing with this, but we also just went to a pass-fail system, meaning that that students can actually choose whether they want their individual classes to be pass-fail or if they want to receive a letter grade. And obviously there are a lot of implications for that, and we have all the details in our emails and things like that, so I don't have it all on me at the moment. But yeah, so far Southern's made a lot of great steps in addressing a lot of students' concerns and needs, but we just want to make sure that we're keeping our eyes and ears out open for further concerns. So yeah, that's all I have.
that was a lot. President O'Jakin, did you want to reply to any of those specifically?
Yes, I'm sorry, Monica. I didn't mean to go out to you. Yeah, so we have a couple of folks about some of the academic issues. Let me tell you that we made a decision early on as a system that we were going to continue to pay student workers through the end of the semester, whether or not they were working or not. I understood how important it was for those students who were on work study, who counted on that source of income to live, to be able to continue to receive that. So I made that decision very early on that all the campuses were to pay their work study students through the end of the semester. So in terms of some of the other issues that you talked about, some are very specific to your institution, and so I'm happy you're working with your advisors and with the administration to to address those. On the pass fail, if Jane's on the phone, I will ask her to address the specifics around the pass fail. But know that we ask institutions to take a look at this at the university level to make it as easy for students to finish as possible, to give them the choice. So students are not required to go to pass-fail. They just have the option to go to pass-fail. And in terms of the internet and computers, very large concerted.
Mark, we're losing you. Your service might be spotty.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. To get to as many laptops to students as possible, and also through Angelo's good work, actually negotiated with the internet providers for free internet for a period of time, and the creation of certain hotspots in the state where folks didn't have to actually sign up, but would have access to the internet. Jane, if you're on, do you want to talk a little bit about the pass-fail?
Sure, thank you. Did I unmute? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we are the academic team looking at refining specifically the final policy for the pass-fail, where in fact students will have the opportunity to make the most informed decisions. We're looking at possibly moving out the June 1, 2020 date farther out so that you will have an opportunity to receive your final grades. And again, as President Ojakian has said, provided that you have an opportunity to make individual decisions. And then it's left to the student, therefore, the flexibility in determining how you adjust what is going on in your academic environment. We wanted to empower the students. We want you to focus on your coursework to successfully complete the spring semester without the need to withdraw. And that's why that policy has been written, the procedure, has been written the way that it has been. So it empowers the student. It is left to the student whether or not you accept a letter grade, which sometimes is required in most cases in allied health, perhaps in the teacher, the education, the EPPs, for licensure, that you submit a grade as opposed to the P, a letter grade as opposed to the P grade. So those are all the things we've taken into consideration. And please know that that procedure is very much consistent to the pass-fail option that we see at institutions across the nation.
Thank you, Dr. Gates. Yeah, we were actually really excited to see the pass-fail option come in. I know it was a concern across many campuses, so thank you so much for your work on that.
Thank you. And make sure if there are any concerns that you get that feedback to us immediately and we will respond.
Okay, thank you so much. President Ojakian, while you're still on the line, did you want to update us on the CEO search?
Yes, thank you. Well, the CEO search right now has been suspended for a short period of time. The committees, as you know, met, interviewed candidates for the schools, and the next phase of the search was supposed to be bringing the finalists to campuses. And so because of the situation we find ourselves in, the original timeline, which was supposed to be actually bringing the finalists in by the end of March, has been postponed in the short term. So we still intend, God willing, to complete the process in time for new CEOs to start before the fall semester. And so as soon as we're able to, I think, sort of meet in person, have people fly to come into our state or drive into our state, we will resume. But know that we had a very strong pool of candidates for the campuses that were involved in the search, and as soon as we're able to resume it officially, we will.
Thank you for that update. I know some other students said they had questions, so I did want to find out, but I had one in particular that hasn't been addressed. There's a lot of concerns for like the nursing students, and like I think actually Brooke mentioned it in hers, where like clinicals, like if there's going to be a supplement on clinicals, because not necessarily a refund, and I know Mr. Barnes is going to speak to that, but we're talking about like some hands-on experience. In fact, engineering students also had the same types of concerns of not being able to have that hands-on experience. So I would like to ask that, and also the deadline to complete, like to submit grades for incomplete was during that whole mix-up, and I was just going to ask if there was going to be an extension on that deadline, like we have seen with the extension on the ability to withdraw and things like that.
Jane, do you want to speak to that? Jane, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So that has been discussed, that deadline should be extended for the incomplete as well, to the student to determine, and he or she should determine then what works best in their field of study when submitting that. All of those deadlines, we've asked institutions to extend them. So whatever's published in your in your university with respect to the catalogs, all of that should have been adjusted at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Now, with respect,
Jane, in terms of the hand-on experience requirements, because we're doing a lot to try to either modify that or find, sort of labs in a box, to try to see if there's technology available to sort of, supplement what normally would be the hands-on experience. What do you do if you're a student teacher? All of those kinds of things, which I know students are very concerned about. I know we're making that a priority in terms of our planning.
That's correct. I've visited with the program directors, for example, of nursing across all of the institutions. It's my understanding they are making available simulations. There are simulations for both the STEM disciplines as well as allied health disciplines. We're also, through the CIO and others, reaching out to companies to provide the best practice in simulations and the labs in a box, which many universities use today. So there are those resources available. It's just a matter of our ensuring that all of our institutions have them. I also understand that there has been some relaxation with respect to the EPPs, the educational program practitioners, their public programs, their preparation for teaching, the EPPs, that the national organizations are providing some flexibility in terms of the acceleration of what students are required to demonstrate a mastery of. It's very difficult. We cannot expect our students to complete those clinical or the experiential practices in the classroom when in fact we have social distancing during a pandemic. So what we've asked, we're reaching out to all of the accreditors, these bodies, to ensure that we are able to be as flexible as possible with our students in these programs. So as we get the determination from these accrediting bodies and licensure bodies, we will move all of that forward to your chief academic officers. They also are in touch with the accrediting and the licensure bodies. So those campuses should be able to tell you today specifically what those modifications are on each of your campuses, because we're in contact with them throughout this pandemic time. If you don't get the answer from your campus, then send an email to me, and the academic affairs team will then get on top of that and get you a response.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Gates. There was one last question. I forgot I had a list of questions as well. Brooke actually had some of those within her questions, so I won't echo any of those. But students did ask about the possibility of getting ink and paper for ink for their printers and paper for their printers because they're having to print an excessive amount. And that was one question that came up.
Good question. I handle that.
Yeah, we can. I made a note of that. We can look into. I have to talk to our CIO and see if that's something that's a possibility. I don't know, Mark, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, no. I think that's a very good point. And why don't we see, working with Ben's team. I know through the purchasing team or through Joe. Somewhere we should be able to, to get some supplies that we can then distribute.
Yep, it's a reasonable request.
Well, thank you so much. And did you come anywhere closer on the decision of graduation or not as of yet? I know they just extended the stay at home even longer, so I'm assuming nothing has changed as of yet.
No, so Monica, we're still, working with campus leaders to get suggestions for what they each would like to do in terms of, graduation, whether they want to do something virtually. We're still monitoring, the situation, closely. I think, unfortunately, even though the sort of national social distancing guidelines were extended to April 30th. In the end, really, it's going to be up to states to determine, what they're going to do. And you may know in Connecticut's working closely with New York, New Jersey, and in some cases Pennsylvania to have sort of a regional approach so that one state's not doing something totally different than another state. I would anticipate that even April 30th, we're not going to be back to normal. And so we want to be able to celebrate students' accomplishments in a very appropriate way. But in terms of events where people would come together, we're still gathering information and we're still working with campuses to determine what they would like to do. Because it is going to be up to really each campus, but we don't want one campus to get way ahead of another campus and then, have the governor say you can't do what was being proposed. One of the very positive aspects of being a part of the governor's emergency response team statewide is we're in close contact with all of our sort of colleagues in other state agencies, whether it be public health or public safety. So we understand the magnitude of what's happening on a daily basis, if not a couple of times a day. And we participate in those calls every day. So, I felt sort of really bad that we had to make a decision early on to cancel in-person commencement exercises because I knew early on that this was not going to be over in a short period of time. And the thought of bringing families together with students in a closed area was not in the best interest of families or those students from a public health perspective. So we're still monitoring the situation. We're working with campuses, and campuses have been asked to work with their student governments to come up with some thoughts about what they would do, whether they would want to do it later in the summer or in the fall or in the winter, or do something in May but virtually. So those conversations are ongoing, Monica.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all your work. I can't imagine what it must be like for the system to go virtual. And I'm sure it takes a lot of effort to get everything accomplished. And we really do appreciate it. And with that, are there any updates with Students First in particular?
Well, yes. So we continue to work at other things other than managing the crisis. Right. It seems like for the first week to 10 days, we were totally focused, at least at the senior level, of managing this crisis, of going virtual, of closing the dorms, of getting space ready to be used by the governor's emergency team. So we took up a lot of bandwidth that we had, but the teams on the ground continued to work. We are continue to work on our response to NECHI based on last year's guidance and last year's meeting that we had face to face. And we will have some update later in the week about the timing of that. We're still working on that with NECHI, because as you can imagine, everybody's working virtually right now. And so, but we continue to work. We continue to work with the folks at the Student Success Center, at Achieving the Dream. Everybody now is working virtually. So we've had to slow it down a little bit to manage the crisis. But I think the teams will be up and running, in no time. And this delay will not impact our plans moving forward.
That's great. Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate your time. We all appreciate your time hearing directly from you. It's been a huge change, and we're getting a lot of feedback from students, and we're just hoping that people stay the course and put as much effort into their courses as they can and finish up strong. And with that, I do appreciate it. I don't have any more questions. I don't know if anyone else on the committee has any more questions for President Ojekian.
So I know we touched on STEM and allied health, but I might have missed it. Did we touch on fine arts, guitar classes, dance expression, theater, acting? How is that going to work?
Jane?
Jane, fine arts in terms of, in terms of
hands-on experience, probably.
Right. This is Jane Gates here. I have not reached out to the fine arts, but coming from the Western position as provost and having worked very closely in the last two institutions with the fine arts and theater, what I will do, there are lots of things that can be done. Can you hear me? Did I need to unmute?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
There are lots of things, particularly with theater and what one can do individually, and the video audio capability, the filming, the different things. But I will reach out to Western and the other just outstanding fine arts programs in our institution to get directly from the provost and the deans what those accommodations look like. I have not moved forward that request, but I'm sure it will be immediately available, because you guys are in one of the best programs ever, not only in the state, but very, very competitive. So I will reach out to them, and they're generally very, very responsive.
Great. Thank you very much.
So what I'll do is get the response to whom should I send this response to respond to this question to whom? This will be
Send it to me and I'll get it out.
okay to Angelo, and then
Yeah.
get it out. Excellent. I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to hop off then and leave you to the rest of the folks, but I just want to once again thank you, and Monica's point, standing strong and trying to focus on completing your academic year in spite of these incredible barriers now that have been put, in your way. And just once again to say, you all, for the most part, are very, very young. You're not in that group that, is being told to stay home all the time like I am. But just please stay safe. This virus knows no age limits or knows no gender. And it can strike at a moment's notice and be very debilitating, if not fatal. So please stay safe and stay strong. And know I'm always here if you need me, and most of you know how to reach me. So please do. And thank you very much.
Thank you, President Jakin. If there's no other questions for Dr. Gates, she can, go off the line if she has other meetings. But Monica, do we want to ask Ben Barnes to talk about the temporary hold on withdrawals and the refund policy? I wasn't sure if there was questions about that.
Any refunds? Students were asking about especially clinical fee refunds.
Ben, are you on the line?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now? Just making sure I'm unmuting.
Monica, you were muted for the first part of what you said.
No one knows how to work any of this shit.
Monica?
Sorry. Yes. Let me just say that again. So on my campus, and I've heard from other campuses, students were most concerned about fees, refund fees for clinical fees. And because they're not going to receive that hands-on experience, and they don't feel that they're going to get as in-depth of an education and are losing out. And so they were asking specifically about clinical fee reimbursement, if you can speak to that.
Sure. And I will admit that there are some parts of this that are really outside of my area. So I will speak generally about a few things. We are taking the approach that we are only going to pay refunds when we are unable to provide the service, and we are the moratorium on withdrawals, among other things, in addition to giving us an opportunity to work with individual students to make sure that they understand the consequences of that and are making good decisions, which we want to support. We are also giving, the campuses an opportunity to identify the best way to continue the coursework that we have on offer. So until we see that those efforts conclude over the next probably week or so, and we begin to see report back of where the campuses are on their ability to offer every single offering, we are holding on making refunds other than room and board refunds. We know we have to make those. Those are on their way out the door now. Obviously, if we cancel something and we can't provide it, we will be providing refunds in those situations. But until we're asking for a little bit of forbearance while we work to identify the best way to continue to offer those services. I mean, obviously, we don't want to give out refunds because that would suggest that we're not able to meet students' needs. We're trying to keep everybody on track with their academic program and to get them to be successful. this semester, and for students who are about to graduate and students who are, even if they're not right about to graduate, still are looking to continue making progress on their path. So until we have a firm handle on which classes are being offered and which ones are not, we are not making refunds. But I don't dismiss that there may be some individual, clinical experiences or specific fees related to activities that we're not going to be providing based on the feedback we get from the faculty and the academic leadership at each campus. So until at that point, I think we will develop an approach for making any refunds that are relevant. I really hope that that number is extremely small because, again, every time we don't offer a course, there's a student who isn't able to get the credits that they need and is left without an opportunity to pursue the course that they had signed up for. Our goal is to get everybody available to, or every course available to students to continue through. And until we've had it, I wish we could have gotten it done in that first week over the vacation week, but a few things are going to continue to develop probably through this week until we've finalized every answer. If you think that there's an issue, I would encourage you to reach out to your own campus, through your department to identify that you think, make sure that they're aware of any concerns you have about a specific activity that you think that you're not able to take advantage of because of the limitations. Make sure that they are given an opportunity to address that. But we should be able to go from that listing of what's being offered, what's being modified, what's if anything is being canceled, what is that, and we will develop a plan for refunding that at that point.
So what you're saying is that we should get a list together to you, Mr. Barnes, because I do understand it to be that clinicals have been canceled, and this would be where students would go off campus to work at a clinic to have that hands-on experience with real patients, and so they're not able to do that.
Yeah, although I have to say, there's been a huge amount of discussion about how to coordinate, volunteer and employment efforts for students in the health services areas, and I don't. I'd like to have the managers of those specific programs come up with a solution in each case. I am. If you send it to me, I'm happy to make sure that the individual folks at each campus who are running those programs are aware of concern in a particular area. But it's not my decision as to how, the nursing program at Southern elects to manage their students and their program. I really am going to wait for the guidance from there. So the best place for students who have concerns is to take it in to the folks who are managing their academic program, their advisors, their faculty, and the leadership in those departments to identify areas of concern so that they can try to address those quickly and get those concerns dealt with in the approach that they're taking to their programs. Obviously, again, if we can't provide a service that we had intended to provide, we will talk about doing the refunds at that stage. But I strongly encourage you to work with the academic departments to get to find out what their plans are for continuing to offer those services, because that's our default option, is to find a way to continue to have those, in case of clinical activities, to continue to have those go forward somehow, if there is a way to do that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barnes. And did you also have an update on the withdrawals and how that's going to be extended, or what the new process is for withdrawals?
Well, there are a couple of issues that I'm aware of having to do with federal financial aid that we were especially concerned about. We were concerned that if students had withdrawn before they had and I'm using air quotes here, earned their Pell Grants, they could be on the hook to reimburse money to the federal government, which we didn't want to put any student in that situation. It's an onerous problem. The bill that just was, I think, signed by the president over the weekend, the CARES Act, includes a whole series of provisions allowing additional latitude to students with respect to federal financial aid. We're just going through that now. For the community colleges and the universities are all individually reviewing the financial aid implications. So I expect that we will see the resolution of that moratorium. Probably, I think the original moratorium was through this week, if I remember correctly. So I'm hopeful that we'll see resolution of that over the course of this week, so that students will, have a good idea of what choices they have with respect to that. Now, I'll be honest. I don't want students to withdraw. For two reasons. One, because I don't think that that's, I'd rather see students succeed in their academic careers. That's why I'm doing this for a living. But also, I don't really want to have to, I'm concerned about students losing momentum, about the enrollment of all of our institutions going forward. I think it's very critical that we try to keep students engaged. And I think you'll see that our efforts really reflect our desire to find ways to ensure that students continue to be engaged in progress toward their academic goals. But I think at the end of this week we'll provide more information on the ending of that moratorium and what the outcome is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barnes. We do appreciate you coming on to speak with us today.
Yes, thank you, Ben.
All right. Well, if there's nothing further, you're free to leave and continue on your work. I'm sure you have tons to do. I mean, this has been such an experience for everyone, and we all do appreciate everything the system is doing.
One last thing that I'll just say to all of you, just because they're your campuses too, and you're probably interested in this. We are deeply involved with the state emergency managers, the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We are turning over a significant amount of our facilities, particularly at the universities, but also in some cases at the colleges, to the state for use in a variety of ways. We're going to be providing additional overflow hospital facilities. At Gateway, they're going to be providing classroom space for onboarding of new health staff. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to, make sure our facilities are maintained and protected and are there for us to go back to without any problem when we're all done. But in the meantime, I hope you will share my pride in being able to contribute quite a considerable, valuable assets to the state of Connecticut in their response to this virus.
That is awesome. That is really great news. That's actually something I was thinking about too for Gateway in particular, because we're right just a couple minutes from Yale New Haven Hospital. So that's really amazing. Thank you so much for your efforts on that.
Yeah, I think they're happy to be able to have a sort of I think they previously did their onboarding in the hospital, but every space in the hospital is being converted to emergency response, and so it was very helpful to them to have some classroom space for doing the, plus they're, I think, on kind of a hiring binge right now, so I expect they're going to be onboarding a lot of new medical staff.
That's great news.
Thank you very much for the chance to speak to you. And anybody who has a concern, feel free to send me an email. It's probably the best way to reach me these days. I will be happy to address any financial or facilities concerns, or if it's a concern about academics, I'm happy to find the right person to share that issue with. So please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Barnes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. So, Angelo, do you want to make some remarks regarding the coronavirus and give us any updates on that? I know President Ojekin spoke a little bit about it, but if you want to give us any specific updates on COVID-19?
No, I think President Ojekin and Ben Barnes did a good job kind of giving the overview of where things stood with relation to the campuses and, working with the emergency department to turn over some of the buildings. But I think I just want to make sure we have time for the open discussion or address any other concerns that maybe did not come up. The question about ink and paper, I made a note. We're going to look into that. But was there anything else that the group wanted to talk about? I wanted to make sure that, there was ample time for that as well, or for me to answer any questions that there might be.
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. So my question is, how are those that are paying out of pocket for their education going to be affected by this? For example, a lot of the students lost their jobs or they had to return home, et cetera, and they may have been on a payment plan. So are the schools going to withdraw them from the schools because they couldn't meet their last payment? What's going to happen?
So that's a great question. So all of our schools have been directed, whether it's the colleges or the universities, to work with students as much as possible. So the first point of contact would be the bursar's office or the cashier's office to talk about the payment plan, and maybe there's a way to defer it or to pay less or to extend it. But all the campuses have been directed by the system office to work with students as much as possible, to hold students as harmless as possible. With the understanding that we know people have lost their jobs and, people are unemployed and, there's a lot of other stressors going on. So I would definitely refer you back to the local school first. And then if you're not able to get resolution there, I'm happy to intervene and get some possible remedies.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other students want to have a comment here?
I have a question on, this is Claudia from Asnuntuck Community College. I had a question about the non-traditional students not being able to adapt to this new online system via Zoom or WebEx. How do you suppose we adjust to this as being a non-traditional student?
So that's a great question. Going online in a very short period of time is obviously very challenging for everyone, and we know that it's a stressful time. We would encourage you to work with as Nantucket staff as much as possible and faculty to figure out ways to be able to productively learn and work online. We know WebEx and Teams can be challenging. I know some of the professors are using Zoom. We knew that one of the barriers was for students who didn't have access to internet because they couldn't necessarily afford it. So the good news is Cox, Xfinity, Comcast, and Charter and a few others are offering free internet service. It's good. It's a learning curve and it's a change and it's definitely an adaptation. All of our professors and faculty members at the 17 schools, from what we can tell so far, want to work with the students. They want to help the students. They know that there might be some initial challenges with getting online and getting WebEx or whatever vehicle they're using for online learning going. So I would suggest you first work with your professor or instructor at the college to figure out ways to be successful. And then if that doesn't prove to be helpful, Tim St. James, who's the dean of students there, might be another resource to kind of help and get things going. But our goal is to keep as many students enrolled in these classes and academic programs as possible, and help you to successfully complete your studies to get your degree to move on.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, don't give up. I know it's hard. Just keep on, email your professors and with any questions. I know professors are being very, very helpful and very accessible, and just keep trying. And if it's not working out, we do have the ability to withdraw at a later date, and I know that's not something most students want. So, just reach out to your professors, and I encourage you to keep going. I think, I think we can all get through this semester and finish up strong. So are there any other questions from students or concerns? We'd like to hear from you.
All right, I guess not.
Okay, so if you're not speaking, please mute your phone. And also, if there are no other questions, I believe that's all we have. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to talk about this schedule for Student Activity Committee for moving forward. And we pushed this meeting up, so we're normally meeting every the first Friday of every month, and we still do have to possibly hear from candidates for next semester, and we want to make sure that we have all new representatives or alternative members connected with us, and we want to give you the process to submitting your interest for the chair or vice chair, and also secretary positions will be available for next semester. And we do want to go over the bylaws. Oh, and I just realized I never sent those out, so I'm so sorry about that. I'll send that out today. We do want to do that at our next meeting. So does anyone have any comments as far as getting together on 1 month from now on a Monday, or should we move back to Fridays, or how does everyone feel about that?
Our next scheduled meeting is the 17th, so maybe we should just do it electronically. And then if we need to do one sooner, depending on what issues might come up, we can do that depending on what comes up in terms of the next couple of weeks, if that works for everybody.
So we're going to keep our schedule for now?
Yeah, unless anybody has any objections to that.
So that'll be April 17th, and then our final meeting will be around May 8th then?
Yeah, we can talk about the May meeting. I think we'll know a little bit better about what's going on in the world as we get closer to May.
Sure. Okay, so as of now, we're scheduled for April 17th at 10 a.m., which is a Friday, and we'll have that webinar link sent out to you.
Perfect.
Are there any other questions or concerns here? Okay. Well, thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the meeting today, and hopefully everyone has a good rest of the semester. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time today. I hope you have a good day.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Angela.